Hi everyone, my name is Lauren McDonald, and I'm going to be talking about how Roman and some Greek influences can be seen in a building back home in Washington State. The Romans and Greeks were extremely innovative and important in the creation of architecture all over the world and from so many different time periods, especially when it comes to things like ornate detail. So again, just kind of what we're looking at. So what are we looking at? How was it made? When and where was it made? And why was it made? You know, the big questions that we always look at in class. So I chose to talk about the Washington State Capitol building in Olympia, Washington. It was rebuilt in 1928, and that's what's shown here in this picture. It was designed by Walter Widener and Harry White, who were inspired by Stanford White, who was the designer and architect behind the Rhode Island State House, which I have reference pictures of here. You can see that this structure was very much influenced by the Romans. It has the Corinthian order on the columns, which we can see with the capitals here and the details here as well. It has the arched doors and windows, and then it also has the domes that we see. And you can kind of see the arches better here. But so you can tell that they really took inspiration from this, and it's reflected in the Washington Capitol building. Walter and White also really wanted the dome to be taller, and they wanted sculptures balanced off of either side of the north entrance stairs. They wanted a variety of Grecian figures carved into the entry pediment, and they also wanted a huge sculpture above it that would have been a horse-drawn chariot. But unfortunately, the budget just wasn't big enough for a lot of that detail, but we can obviously see how it's drawn from ancient Greece and Rome. So the front of the buildings. So here we have the Washington State Capitol along with the Pantheon. And so just kind of by looking at the front of the buildings, we can see that there are many similarities between the Pantheon, a very significant and beautiful building from Rome, and the Capitol building. So first, they both have these Corinthian columns, and we know this because they are slender. They have the bell-shaped capitals, so you can see that here and a little bit here. They have the volutes, which are like the scroll-like designs, which you can't really see in this picture. They have the acanthus leaves, and they also have the dentil, which is the trim-like design at the bottom of the pediment that you see here. They both have that. And they both also have pediments, you know, these that we see here, as well as inscribed tablature. So we can see the writing here. It's a little fainter on the top picture. And then they both have domes that are pushed into the back of the building. They're also both made of a mixture of concrete and marble, although definitely in different amounts. The Capitol has a lot more marble and a little bit of concrete, and the Pantheon's kind of the opposite, a lot more concrete, a little bit marble. So then just to point out the domes specifically, so you can see that the domes look very different, but I still think that, you know, the dome came to popularity under the Romans as they primarily used concrete for many of their structures. It was a lot more flexible and they had a lot more like fluid movement that they could make. So I definitely think that's a good comparison to have as well. The interiors. So moving on to these, we can see that there are quite a few similarities here as well. So what I first noted were the barrel vaulted halls and entries, which are kind of like these thicker arch-like parts, which as we know, kind of were huge in ancient Rome. So in here, this side is the Pantheon and this side is the state capitol. They also have these coffer-like rectangles on the walls of the Capitol building. You can see them right here and right here. And they have these layers to them that look like movement, which are very similar to these here in the Pantheon. And then they both also have columns inside, and these columns are also in Corinthian order, just like on the outside. You can just barely see the columns here and then the columns here. And then they both have a lot of color. So we can see that there's a lot of color on the walls here in the Pantheon and then as well here in the Capitol. So the when and why. When talking about the when and why, I wanted to kind of shift to a different important structure in Rome, which is going to be the Colosseum. I'm still pushing this idea that ancient Rome had a really large effect on the capital, but I feel like this structure better suits kind of the why. So the Capitol was built in the late 1920s in Olympia, Washington, as a working governmental center and just a symbol of Washington's free and democratic government. Um, it's home to the chamber where state legislation is created and passed, and the offices for those of power, such as the governor and the lieutenant governor, secretary of state, and other really important people like that. It also gives an opportunity for public access to state government. It encourages, public engagement with the democratic process, and it's just there for citizen use and enjoyment as well. On the other hand, the Colosseum was built in 70 AD in Rome. It's different in that it's not directly related to politics, but it very much reinforced the ideals and the culture of the current regime in kind of a similar way that the Capitol does. And it was also a gift to the city as a symbol of resilience and faith in the empire, which I think kind of helps to connect it to the Capitol, and that it's there to show people's confidence in the regime and the culture as a whole in the area. This reinforcement can also be seen by kind of like the hierarchy seating system that we talked about in the Colosseum, with the different entries and the different levels. And the different events that took place there, such as executions. We do have little maps. So right here, we can see that the Colosseum is very close to the middle of Rome. And then the Washington State Capitol is kind of down here. Seattle is the city that most people know, so it's pretty relatively close. So these are similar in kind of the why because of political culture and power, and it's a place of diverse emotion. So kind of already talked about that political and cultural power, but these places also hold a variety of emotions for the public. For some, the Capitol building is a place of community and power and culture, and it has this really positive association. And some citizens of Rome felt very similarly in terms of the Colosseum, especially those who are powerful and elite, which is also true for the Capitol. So for example, if you're a politician or an elite and a bill or a law that would positively influence you is passed at the Capitol, or say you're a wealthy elite senator or man and you get to watch these gladiators battle to the death for your entertainment, that kind of reminds you of your power, then the Colosseum is going to be a very positive place for you. Same with the Capitol. In contrast, if you're a member of Seattle's, unhoused community and a bill that's cutting social welfare and housing opportunities is passed at the Capitol, or you're one of these poor gladiators or people facing execution at the Colosseum, you're obviously going to have very different negative feelings about these places. So they just hold a variety of feelings for different people in the community, kind of based off class and power, which is kind of that political cultural aspect and then emotion. But either way, they're both kind of these community-based structures that help to represent the culture and the regime at the time. Last thing I wanted to kind of touch on was this statue that I found out about while doing some research. This is the winged warrior statue that is also on the Capitol grounds in Washington. So we can see that it is made of bronze. So this has a little bit of both Greek and Roman influence. But yeah, we can see that it's made out of bronze, which was very, very popular in Rome. And the statue was put into place to honor those who served in World War I. And it shows these life-size figures of a sailor, a soldier, and a Marine. So we have the three different here. Behind them is a Red Cross nurse, and then behind them is Nike. So this representation of this god was inspired by the Nike of Semirith statue from the Hellenistic period. And this piece was supposed to kind of convey victory and protection of those serving the country. And we can see much of this Greek and Roman influence with the piece being made of bronze, like I said, the stances and the detail. So all of the men have the 1 foot forward, which we know can kind of be the symbol of power and strength that has long been a part of the statues from these places. And then we can tell that it's based off the Hellenistic piece because of the fluid detail and emotion. So this can be seen with the folds and fine details of the clothing. So like here on the dress, the creases in the pants, same with kind of like the creases in the front here. And then they have these very, stoic faces that kind of show strength and honor. They look very fluid in their motion. We can see that with them walking, as well as her outstretched arm here. That really just reminded me of some of the pieces that we've looked at in class from both the Greek and Roman cultures. And then obviously having the representation of a Greek god was really important too. And so kind of just to close things up, past art's influence today. So the Roman and Greeks had an immense impact on the art and architecture we see every day. We can see this through grand marble structures with columns such as the Capitol, arches, bronze statues, domes, and so much more. The ideas of detail, perfection, and power continue to influence the structures we create and have prevailed for thousands of years. The Washington State Capitol is one of many examples of this influence, and it exemplifies both that artistic and cultural and political ideas of the Romans. Thank you.